Hello and welcome to episode 225 of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
Bill, and it's been an interesting week with a lot of highs and a lot of lows. Um, I guess I want to start talking about the Suns and the Bucks. Start
Yeah,
off with our NBA stuff,
I think that's a good place.
and I've just really been impressed with the Suns as a team. And they've got three, Crowder and Bridges. I mean, they've got a lot of stories and other guys off the bench. I mean, they're all performing at championship level and play really, really well together. I think the coach has done an amazing job. I think GM's done an amazing job. And I think, we said we thought they would win. But they're going to win. They could win in four. They'll probably win in five. I think Milwaukee will win one of the next two at home.
I think so. And this brings up something I wanted to I wrote down in my notes is that one of the big stories that you hear and you see on Twitter constantly and other forms of social media is that the Bucks don't make adjustments. And I would say there's two things I want to bring up about that. First off, whenever what I've tried to do, at least as I've matured as an adult and probably into my 30s, is that when you get, if you have a criticism, you need to have at least offer some sort of solution. So if you say they need to make adjustments, I need to hear what adjustments you think they need to make. And along those same lines, like we said, the Suns are just a really good team. They've got mid-range game. They've got inside. They were seventh in the league in three-point efficiency. I know they hit 20 out of, we're 50% the other day. They were 15th in three-point. I mean, they play good team defense. DeAndre Ayton has come up a level. I don't know what the Bucks can do other than make shots. And that's not an adjustment. That's just people performing.
It's just performing, yeah.
Like, I mean, you could argue, after the first game, Giannis was hurt and coming back, and the next game he puts up an incredible 42 points in 40 minutes and is absolutely dominant. Even played well from the free throw line. He's getting constantly hassled there, and I'd like to. I mean, obviously that's an area he needs to improve in, but in that first game they missed a bunch of bunnies, a bunch of layups, and that's not an adjustment. That's
No,
execution.
it's really not.
And Chris
It's really
Middleton
just not
playing,
close.
either like the player you're paying him for or like a bench guy, that's also not an adjustment. That's a guy that needs to play well. And Drew Holiday needs to look like a guy you gave up 3 or 4 first round picks for.
Yeah, and I know he came out in game two with something to prove, and he was shooting. And I guess that was the knock. He needed more offense out of him. So I mean, he was shooting, but he wasn't making them.
No.
And I mean, that's something.
But I think the nice thing about this finals is that the two guys with the question marks were Giannis and Chris Paul career wise coming in, right?
Right.
Now they've both been to the finals. One of them is going to come away winning, probably Chris Paul. But Giannis has looked, I mean, that's a superstar performance. That's the first 20-point quarter since Michael Jordan, the third quarter Giannis had.
And he was dominant.
And he was
I mean, they
dominant.
couldn't stop him.
And he's coming back from an injury and, on top of everything else, and he carried the team to almost a win. And you saw that they were up by 3 with him in the game and they were down by like 20 when he's out. So, all the talk about they're better when he's not there, I think that was more a case of playing a team like an upstart team like the Atlanta Hawks without Trae Young than it was so much Giannis being out. But I think both guys have made them, have looked. I think they've answered the questions and the doubters and the haters and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, Giannis and Chris Paul have definitely answered, and they've answered emphatically.
And whether they should have been
I
even
don't think
asked.
there's any way you criticize either of those two players for anything.
No. I mean, I think the only criticism now, and we talked a little bit about it off air, is, NBA ratings are at, an all-time low for the finals right now. But, you know, we're coming off a year where everybody was trapped inside, and now they're finally able to be outside and be outside without masks, depending on where you're at and, your vaccination levels. And then we just had 4th of July week, which is the biggest travel week of the year. So it could be that as much the fact that it's not LeBron or Steph or KD in the finals. But I mean, I would assume if we had,
I've enjoyed the finals.
I have too.
I really have. I like, watching Phoenix. Phoenix is fine. I'm vested in Phoenix. I've worked with them for 20 years. So I'm very vested in Phoenix. But I do like the fact that, they really came from the bubble last year and just have gelled and become a really, really good team. And that takes a lot of effort and a lot of intensity. And, a lot of people, including myself, were puzzled when Chris Paul signed to go there.
Yeah.
And I've said numerous times on the show, I thought Milwaukee should have given up whatever they could give up. And now I even look better on that prediction because if you're taking Chris Paul instead of Drew Holiday, it looks a lot better, doesn't it?
It does. And the other huge, I guess my biggest clap, hooray, whatever, is not just that DeAndre Ayton is really coming into his own this year as a player, but that he credits some of the tough love and coaching and listening to the Chris Pauls and the Monty Williamses. He's not, I think a lot of young people in general, and definitely young players, are coming into the league with a little bit more, and I don't want to say entitlement because I don't think that's quite the right word, but it's rare to see somebody, the number one overall pick in the draft who's playing incredible. He's giving all the love to a veteran who was on his butt all year long, and a coach who just would, and it's nice to see. And hopefully some other players that are, maybe not living up to their potential will realize maybe they need to listen a little more. And I'm not saying it's, it's because this generation or AAU basketball, I don't know what it is exactly, but whatever it is, it's nice to see that it, him handle it that way, I guess.
Absolutely.
And hopefully that didn't make me sound even older than I am, but
No, it didn't. Well, staying on basketball, what are your thoughts on the U.S. Olympic team losing to Nigeria? I know it's an exhibition game.
What's odd is, I talked about a few months ago, or I guess a few weeks ago, that what I wanted to see was a normal person in every single event so that I could, scale it and gauge it. The NBA is the one area where we've had that my entire life. Was watching the NBA, which grits the best players, in America. We invented the sport. We always have the best players. I know you could argue Luka and Giannis and all these guys, foreign players, but they're all scattered out throughout the world. They're not from one individual country. But we shouldn't lose to Nigeria ever. It shouldn't happen.
That's true.
I think you could have sent over, OKC and they should beat Nigeria.
Yeah, and I'm looking at some of the comments is we haven't had that long to play together. We're still trying to get used to each other and everything else. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
But still, you don't expect it to happen.
No. You just don't. I mean, it's, great for Nigeria. That's, they can dine out on that probably for the rest of their lives if they beat Team USA. I know it's not quite Dream Team or Dream Team 2 level anymore, but you still beat the United States, which is, if you're Nigeria, that's a giant feather in your cap. Because Nigeria is the size of a handful of states?
Yeah. But there are some NBA players that play that are on the Nigerian team.
Of course.
It's not like they're, pushovers.
No. But, we mainly have a group of NBA All-Stars plus Kevin Love. So that should be enough to win, regardless of how much they played or practiced.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we can move.
I want to shout out to the Lightning for winning
their
second back-to-back Stanley Cup. And like I told Jason offline, I have become, again, I don't know if I'm a hockey player, but I'm a Lightning hockey fan. And so I've learned more. I understood the game more by watching one team consistently. It actually increased my knowledge and appreciation of the skills needed to play the game. So I am, as I sit here in 2021, I am much more of a hockey fan than ever before in my life. And I think a lot of it is because I understand it more, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, going from a high to a low, did we see the end of Conor McGregor as a professional MMA fighter last night?
Part of me wants to say yes, but, I know how much he's popular, he has a following, people will still pay to see him, so we'll have to see. I don't think you could take him. I mean, those were two butt kickings
In a row. And I know you had the injury last night,
And,
but
while I think that they could still sell round four, I don't think a lot of promoters would have the appetite for it, or a lot of the media. I mean, I don't know. I never say never, because I never know what people are going to do. But still, I don't know.
I mean, because this was also, a live fight where you could go in attendance, so there was a hype around it because people were excited to try to get tickets, people tried to take it
Yeah.
to go, and like, that's not going to be there ever. I mean, hopefully, knock on wood and all those other things, but the odds of the circumstances coming to this fight, and again, McGregor, as we talked about offline, he admitted that in the previous few years that having the comforts of usually like most fighters, he didn't come from a ton of money. And when he became one of the most famous, popular people in the world, that maybe his training changed a little bit and some of his philosophies. And not that he was lazy by any stretch, but this time he hasn't seen his kids in 6 weeks. He hasn't seen his wife in 6 weeks. He went back to old school training, and still broke his leg, but was probably going to get his ass kicked either way. So
Yeah, he was going to get whooped.
if anything, the leg is
And
the best thing for him.
yeah, and the Cajun dude just was up for the challenge.
And he was. And he said he doesn't even like fighting anymore. He just can't help it because he's so damn good at it, which I thought was kind of funny.
It is kind of funny, but I mean, it makes sense too, right?
Yeah, it does. He's not lying about it. So,
No, being honest about it, Yeah.
well, I guess we should probably discuss track and field for a moment, right?
Yes, we should probably discuss track and field. I don't agree with what went down.
You know
I
what's
think
odd? As someone that's always been pro marijuana my entire life, I also know like the rules are pretty. I listened to Ocho and Wiley, who are my probably favorite talking heads. Do you ever watch Wiley and Ocho?
hmm
And they were basically saying, it's two former track athletes, one from, I think Ocho is from Nigeria, speaking of Nigeria, and then obviously Wiley went to Colombia and he's been around here. They were basically saying, like, the rules are pretty simple. And they also pointed out something I thought was interesting is that this is the best thing that ever could have happened to her. Despite some of the hype, there's two women in Jamaica that both ran way faster times than she's ever run. And she went from, I think it was like 7,000 followers to over 700,000 on one social media. Everyone knows her name now. Her Instagram blew up. Her Twitter blew up. She's being followed by tons of people. Like, she benefited more from not being able to run, especially because, like I said, I mean, there's a lot of women in the sport that had far better times than she did. So almost not running and not losing or getting the bronze or coming in fourth or fifth, but growing this and getting this huge thing like swell behind her. I mean, she's the kind of person that could probably land on Dancing with the Stars out of this and some other.
That's a good call right there. That is a good call. I am sure that's where she's going to end up.
Because she's a very sympathetic person now. The people, and again, marijuana. It seems like I think I've mentioned it before here. I'm very pro legalization of marijuana. I don't think it's a performance yada yada yada. But at the same time, as Wiley Nocher was saying, as two former NFL players, that the NFL, much like track and field, which is a world organization, so this isn't America cracking down on it. This is the world. They tell you when you're going to be tested. And you know how long you have to have it in your system. And I know you could argue the grief and all the other stuff, and and that's what drove it. But I mean, as I said, you can if you want to go to the restaurant where you have to wear the jacket, you can think it's a stupid policy. Is obviously I have my entire life, but if that's where you want to go,
that's the policy, and it's your choice whether or not you're going to go or not, right?
yeah. And it's but again, like I said, I think she's going to profit off this more so than she would if she ran, I think. I mean, if the two Jamaican women that had...
I think you got a point.
So it's that tragedy into victory, if you will.
Yeah, I think you definitely got a point. I think that there'll be enough of a sentiment of support for her. And what could have been, and they don't have to worry about results, because you're only going to talk about coulda, woulda, shoulda, right?
Right.
And coulda, woulda, shoulda always gives you a lot of room to be open. So
Yeah, because this myth grew that she was the fastest woman, and it's like, no, there's already two Jamaicans women that had like faster times this year than she's run in her entire lifetime. And that doesn't even include people on her own team. I mean, this is it's sort of like the Colin Kaepernick thing, where again he was unjustly kicked out, but he wasn't a very good quarterback when the last time he played football.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you think if she had the fastest time, and she was like the number one sprinter in the world,
Yes.
and she fails the test, do you think they let her go?
I mean, considering she's an American and this is a world organization, probably not. You know, I mean, this seems like a pretty strict world organization that I mean, and again, I know from, like I said, from listening to Ocho and Wiley, and if you just Google that, just it's like I think they talk for like 12 minutes, but they talk about all the guys they played with in the NFL that smoked pot, and they don't mention anybody by name, obviously,
Right.
but basically that and they both ran track, so they know the world. I mean, Ocho's a very smart dude. I really like those guys, and
Yeah.
just that if you want to still do it while you're playing, it's possible to do it. You just have to follow the guidelines. And I know with her, she obviously tragically lost her mother, and that's the catalyst. And although she has done a good job of after the initial, she sort of said it's on me. I shouldn't have done it. Yada yada yada.
Yeah.
And again, maybe eventually, we'll get to the point where all the people wrongly in prison for marijuana will be, as rich people slowly get to open up shops and make a ton of money off it, maybe they'll be released and we'll stop pretending it's the worst thing ever, and it's certainly not a performance enhancer. So, but they also pointed out a weird thing, which I didn't think I'd hear any talk of, but basically that, as much as it's not a performance enhancer, that running is, especially in the Olympic trials, is incredibly stressful.
Mm-hmm.
And that marijuana is a drug that helps relieve stress in a way.
Okay.
So that while other runners are all antsy and anxious and everything else because they're not doing this drug, that maybe it does combine a slight competitive advantage that she gets to. Whether or not, now granted, everyone should be able to use it, less stress, better for everybody, but that, to say that it has no competitive advantage may be even a myth.
That's fair.
And I had never heard that before, so I was like, huh, okay.
No, I agree that you could. That's what it's for, and that's what she said it's for, to relieve her stress. And if she's not stressed and she's more relaxed, she could conceively, I'm not saying for sure, but conceivably be in a better position to be more competitive and more successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought, I like hearing interesting arguments, and that's one I had never heard before, and I was like, oh.
It's a very interesting argument, and I had thought about it before either. I just was, it's stupid. It's legal in so many states. Why are you still testing for this?
Right.
You don't test for alcohol, you should test for marijuana.
Exactly.
I've said that, so we're on the same page on that.
But again, I think, the legend of her speed, along with, probably Dancing with the Stars, or, who knows, maybe they make her the Bachelorette and she gets a career. I mean, I think there's a lot of places she can go, and she'll benefit more this way.
She's gonna benefit from this.
Yeah.
Because public opinion, supports her position. Yeah, absolutely, no question.
Because again, the public opinion right now, you assume she's a professional athlete. She's probably, she probably has a competitive dancing background, or advantage over some senator or some other lame celebrity. So, between that and the sympathy, she might be able to work her way up, and then and if her charisma is enough, it'll keep their career going. So.
Well, when we get some time, let's jump to baseball and the All-Star weekend.
Okay.
A couple comments. One, the number of players that were voted in that aren't playing, either for injury or because they're opting out, is higher than it's ever been.
Yeah.
Which tells me something. I don't know what it tells me, but it tells me something. And then two, Otani's going to be on a stage like he's not had an opportunity to be on a stage before.
Yes.
And I'm hoping that he lives up to the possible hype. I hope he pitches an inning and strikes out three guys and hits a 450-foot home run.
I do as well.
So I'm hoping that's what happens. But I'll be dialed into the home run derby, and I haven't said that in a few years. But because he's in it and it's in Denver with the rare air, I want to see that. And I also watch the All-Star game to see him do the Babe Ruth thing.
I do think
I've been more interested in the All-Star game this year and the home run derby that I've had in the last 5 years. But I'm 7 years old, and I got to say that. So my most concern would be, are the under 34s and under 25s and under 18s excited about the All-Star game and the home run derby and Otani? Because to me, that's the question. If it's people like me, we've always been there. You're not improving the popularity of the sport.
Right.
Because I've always gone to baseball and I've always loved baseball, so I'm fine. But it's those markets that I'm talking about that I want to see what the ratings turn out to be and how it is, to see if it's impactful or not.
Well, they have pointed out that, again, more old guy corner here, that this younger generation consumes even the NBA, with the NBA ratings being down. They consume it through TikTok. They want to see, 20-second,
They want to see
30-second clips, cut together. And obviously, Otani, he has a great home run derby, but that doesn't mean they're going to sit and watch an entire home run derby.
Right.
And that may just be the reality moving forward. And then you got to figure out ways to capitalize on TikTok or whatever the new, highlight presentation is, or who you can get to make hype it. For instance,
an interesting point, Jason. So, as we're selling commercial time for the home run derby, right?
Right.
Maybe you could charge more for the Otani when Otani's batting for the commercial before and after him than you can for somebody else. And maybe that's something that happens. And maybe if the ratings bear it out, that people watch Otani, then he turned it off and then turned it back on until Otani was on, or didn't log back in or whatever. Maybe there's an opportunity to capitalize on that. It's interesting way of looking at it. I mean, if you were selling NBA advertising, you definitely want to be in the fourth quarter, right?
Right. And I don't know
You
who.
definitely want to be in the second quarter.
Yeah, and I'm going to bring in the gaming world again, as I do from time to time, because it's my my favorite non-active hobby. But there's the number one. Everyone has heard of World of Warcraft, whether you're a gamer or not. I'm assuming you've heard of World of Warcraft. So the number one World of Warcraft streamer decided to play Final Fantasy 14, which is another massive online or competitive game that's made a lot of improvements over the years. But the Warcraft people have been a little upset. So he started streaming Final Fantasy. And Final Fantasy is already a big brand. It's doing pretty well. But they had the most concurrent players in his biggest stream of his career. So I don't know who the Major League equivalent of. But if you get that streamer to stream the All-Star game, and I know that's a whole other different level of now you're streaming through somebody else to have people watch your content through somebody else's, prism. But that just may be where the sport is, where the viewership is headed.
Yeah.
And whatever his baseball equivalent is, if you had, the top streamers being like, oh my God, we got to check out this Otani guy, and they're doing their goofy conversation and they're talking, and again, it's not for everybody, and certainly if you're above a certain age, it's like nobody above 30 can hear the whistle, but everybody under 30 can. So, and maybe it's time to get a new whistle, and maybe that's part of the whistle is, allowing, getting some of these popular streamers to stream the home run contest and let them consume the content through them, as opposed to directly through you, because that may not be an option anymore.
I think it's a great suggestion. You need amplifiers, and if these are going to be the people that can amplify better than anybody else, you need to figure out a way to enlist them. I agree. That's a very good point, Jay.
And again, don't worry if you don't get it. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter if you don't. It doesn't matter. We're looking at an aggregate finding here. We're looking at an aggregate. We need X number of viewers. How we get the viewers is irrelevant, right?
Right.
To me, it's irrelevant. If I'm a sponsor, it's probably not irrelevant.
No, but you're
looking at the whole picture of what you need to do. Any way you can amplify what you're talking about or what you're showing or what you're offering is effective. And it's the culmination of all that aggregate ways of doing things. Like when you tell me TV ratings now, I don't care about TV ratings.
No.
I want to know an aggregate number. I want to know, okay, add it all, come up with a formula that says this is good because the number is X. And that X is the aggregate of all the ways people consumed it. Because I know not everybody consumes it on TV, and I know not everybody streams it, and I know not, but you gotta figure out a way to get a number that makes sense.
Right.
In 2021, and the TV rating number is only a partial view of what the effectiveness of something is.
Of course. And again, like I said, I mean, the World of Warcraft guy streaming Final Fantasy is just one example, but it worked wonders for him. It worked wonders for Final Fantasy. And there's got to be a guy out there that, and again, your hope is, okay, so I watched my favorite streamer. He loves Otani. Now I'm into Otani. I'm going to go buy an Otani jersey, I want to start making TikToks of Otani because he's a fucking awesome player. And now you've found a way to reach this new generation without. And again, it's a very foreign concept, and the people that make the decisions probably aren't going to understand it, but it might be one of those ones you just have to just roll with it.
And before we move into entertainment food, the Giants they've been introducing these new city jerseys trying to copy the NBA, the MLB, right?
Right.
The Giant jersey seems to create the Wrigleyville wasn't popular, and the Giant jersey looks to be less popular than that for a number of reasons, because it didn't include black, which is part of the Giants' colors, and they did the fade thing, and it was a G, it didn't say SF, so a lot of criticism. I looked at it, I don't really like it. I wanted to see if you had any thoughts on it.
No, for once, I mean, ESPN my entire life has always published that ugliest jersey, and typically I've always been like, oh, I love those jerseys, but this one, it didn't get me. So if I'm the audience for the people that like the weird, ugly one, as I have been in the past, this one isn't hitting for me.
The latest one that I've liked was a couple of years ago when the Pirates played in the Little League World Series.
Yeah.
They played a game and the jersey said the Berg. And I thought that, and I have one, I thought that was legit.
Right. But I mean, that's also me and I, obviously, we have some connections to Pittsburgh, being born there and whatnot, but like people in Pittsburgh call it the Berg. Like the Berg has...
Yep.
It already comes with an attachment to it. So
yeah. Any entertainment?
I wish I could say I had some entertainment. I've been just watching a lot of old stuff. I have been watching The Fall, and it's a slow burn, but it stars Gillian Anderson. It takes place in London or Ireland, kind of over both Belfast, and it's a serial killer. But like I told people, I mean you learn in 5 minutes into the episode 1 who the killer is. So it's more of why is he doing it and how are we going to catch him.
Okay.
But there's only 3 seasons. It's a British show, so it's 6 seasons or 6 episodes per season. So the entire thing's only 18 episodes. It's free on Prime, and I think it's
The Fall. Okay.
It might be free on something else too. But if you're
I'll check it out.
If you're itching for some crime, it's pretty good.
Yeah. I got caught up on Lisi's story.
Okay.
Which I tweeted out after one of the episodes of all the Stephen King books I've read and all the Stephen King movies I've seen. This particular episode was the most disturbing episode of anything I've ever seen.
Oh wow.
Yes, and I'm not going to comment on why it was disturbing because people might be watching it and it's not over yet. But I think it was episode 5, and it was very, very disturbing to me. And it was disturbing enough that I would have walked away from it.
Oh yeah.
But Mom wants to see how it ends, so we're going to finish watching.
Oh, I do have another one. Netflix is doing Fear Street. It's 3 movies. The first 2 premiered. The first one is 1994. The next one is 1976, which takes place in the 70s. And the new one coming up is 1666. And it follows sort of this witch's curse on a town. And it's a good, it reminds me a little bit of Scream.
Okay.
And it's been pretty enjoyable. Again, if you have Netflix and it's free, and you're into, we've had a lot of very heavy horror films that have come out in the last decade. This is a pretty light affair with some cool lore about a witch. So,
Okay. I'm always into witchcraft.
Yeah. And it's how do you saw, the witch, basically, she cut off her hand on the devil's stone to allow her to have a hold, the hand would give her a hold on the town her entire life. So it's, it's a whole, it works. And again, like I said, it's the same sort of feel of Scream. Like you get some, maybe some scary moments, maybe not, but it's a pretty light,
Well, I got a food moment. I went to the Great Lost Bear yesterday, which is always in the John Connolly novel.
Yeah.
And there's characters always end up in the Great Lost Bear, or the character, Parker, actually works as a part-time bartender sometimes between cases. And so we were in Portland, Maine yesterday, so I decided I was going to go to Great Lost Bear, and I had bacon cheese fries. If you see my Twitter and my Facebook, they're on there. And it was an interesting way to do them. It was like, potato chips, like the potato slices, and then they broil the cheese and bacon on top of them.
Okay.
So it's not like adding a cheese sauce and bacon. It's like, so I'd say they were good, but they weren't James Joyce pub good.
No, no matter, even if you make a nice fresh one with a roux, I think the cheese sauce always trumps melted cheese on cheese fries.
Yeah.
For me.
So James Joyce Pub in Ybor City, that's still my top bacon cheese fry I've ever had.
And they also have really good burgers and buffalo style chickens. So.
But I enjoyed Great Lost Bear yesterday, as I always do. And they have a great nacho. They have like 8 or 9 different nachos with homemade chili. They got a bunch of burgers. I had buffalo chicken sandwich yesterday to go with my chips. But great place if you're ever in Portland. And they've got 72 different beers on tap.
That's quite a few.
Quite a few. Fun place to go.
And I guess we can end it with our Steeler Minute that we can start having now. This is sort of a sad one. But an internet blogger released a video that people have studied over the years, and it's completely true. Is when Roethlisberger's in a shotgun, if it's going to be a pass play, he lifts his left heel. If it's going to be a run play, his heel is flat. And I guess people have gone back over the seasons, and this is pretty much, your poker. He's got a tell, and that's the tell. And we've watched the Steelers running backs get destroyed in the backfield because it seems like they got their ears pinned back. They know exactly what they're doing. And if a guy on the internet figured it out and coaches went back and looked at it and were like, oh, yeah, this is definitely a thing, that your Belichick's, your Harbaugh, your smarter coaches of the world, and your smarter defensive players like your Ed Reeds and those guys and Terrell Suggs, who always seem to know what they were doing, probably knew this too. So
absolutely.
That's a bummer. Hopefully they get that figured out.
Well, we know Belichick did.
Yeah. Of course he did. But yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, enjoy the NBA Finals. Enjoy the Home Run Derby. Enjoy the All-Star Game. And get ready for some NFL preseason here in a couple weeks.
Can't wait.
I know the Steelers and the Cowboys are August the 4th. I think it's August 4th.
Yeah, the Hall of Fame game.
The Hall of Fame game.
Very excited.
Yes.
And NBA draft.
I'm excited about that, even though we only know half the people playing.
That's fine. I want to see some Dwayne Haskins. I'm all in,
We'll see what happens. Everybody have a good week.